our channel, The Twins Who Knit. I'm Jessica.
And I'm Rachel.
And today we have just a normal podcast episode where we're going to go through all the things we've been working on, so all of our finished objects, whips, acquisitions, and then I think we've got just a couple of sewing projects to talk about at the end.
We will jump into talking about what we're wearing today since we're wearing the same thing. And this is our first time matching on the podcast, I think, because we don't normally prefer to match if we can help it. In fact, sometimes we'll like text each other and be like, don't wear this because I'm wearing this. But we wanted to talk about the knit-along that we have been finishing and just kind of enjoy that process a little bit. So we both wanted to wear sweaters today.
So the knit-along was co-hosted between us and Casey from Young Folk Knits, and so it was really good to just get to know her better and chat to her through Instagram and everything, so we really enjoyed that. And this was just a pattern that was on all three of ours, like, hypothetical cues of what we wanted to make, and so it worked out really well that we all wanted to make this sweater. And so the hashtag that we were using is Stornoway Sweater Squad. So it's been so fun seeing people post using that hashtag and seeing like what colorways people are doing. So many people have had such good like stripe combinations, and then quite a few folks have made this pattern just using a solid color, which is also beautiful. And part of the reason that we really liked this sweater, or at least for me, is because between the stripes and all of the texture, it just feels like every row you're doing something different and you constantly want to just finish one section and get to the next and see it grow. And so it was really potato chippy, which I thought was fun. And the knit along is not one that you have to like have finished by March 15th. Like if you were already working on this sweater and you had an active whip, you were welcome to join. If you just cast on and didn't finish, that's totally fine too. This was just very much a for fun sort of thing to see everyone just knit the same sweater, which was really fun.
As far as what we used to make this, we, in addition to choosing the same pattern, chose the same yarn as well. So we both knit Knitting for Olive Merino, 2 strands held double, with their Soft Silk Mohair held single, so a total of 3 strands together. I chose to use, the dark brown is Brown Bear, and then the white is Cream. And yours,
the main color is Trenchcoat, and then the contrast color is Red Currant.
And we talked about this last time a little bit, but we always get questions of why would you hold the merino double if you can get the heavy merino. But we always find that the heavy merino is a little bit closer to a worsted gauge versus holding 2 of the merinos gets a DK weight or gauge. And so we just find that sometimes that works better depending on what the gauge is.
Plus there's more colorway options in the merino and the mohair than there is in the heavy merino.
And somebody commented, which I completely agree with, that if you had to pick what to have more in your stash, like leftovers and stuff, I would rather have leftover of the merino as opposed to heavy merino. So I thought that was a really good thought too. I was like, I agree with that. One thing to note about this pattern, and I might have mentioned this last time too, but it was just kind of a funny experience because while most of this pattern I think is very easy to follow, very easy to understand, the very first row, and there's a couple of other sections throughout, but right off the bat, it has you start with the main color, and then go to the contrast color for quite a wide stretch, and then end again in the main color. And the pattern doesn't specify what technique to use to achieve that. And so it was a little bit funny at the very beginning, starting out of like, do I do intarsia? Do I break the yarn? I don't think that I would want to like carry it that far because it was such a long stretch of contrast color, but it was just kind of a different experience because I went into this going, this is going to be so easy, like we'll zoom through it, and then on the very first row I was like, wait a second. And so I thought that that was worth noting. I also had a message from Laura from Sunday Morning Knits, and she is such a sweetheart. If you don't watch her podcast, definitely find her because she's wonderful. But she had said something about one of the rows when you join the body not lining up for the size that she knit. And I don't know if that was just specific to her size or if I wasn't paying close enough attention.
I feel like by the time I got to joining in the body, I was comfortable enough with the stitch pattern that I wasn't reading row for row
Yeah.
in the body at that point. So it's very possible that we just entirely missed that was occurring, because I was just like kind of on autopilot mode where I was like, you know, still reading for like length instructions, or like if I needed to like cast on any stitches under the arm or anything like that, but I wasn't really reading the pattern for like the stripe and the texture pattern, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I was the same way. So I was like, if that is the case, I did not catch it, but I believe her in her experience because I think that she's very talented. So it would be interesting to know if anybody else found that experience, and it may be specific to a size, I'm not sure. But either way, even if it was the case, I think that this stitch pattern is easy enough to follow that once you've gotten going, it wouldn't be hard to adjust that. So I really, really enjoyed this. I've been wearing this sweater a ton. I feel like it's very cute with jeans. I've been wearing it with skirts, and it's just really cozy and comfortable. And it's been so much fun to see other people knit it as well, and feel like we're knitting along with people. So that was a really enjoyable experience for us.
Yes. I will say, I think other than what you mentioned about like having to do some intarsia on the very beginning of the back yoke or the back neckline, the other thing that kind of like tripped me up, or not tripped me up, but I was like, oh, I wasn't expecting that going into this pattern, is that the blocks of colors that you have are all odd numbers. And so when you're doing the yoke, when knitting flat, you have to break the yarn every single time you transition colors, because otherwise your yarn's at the opposite side of your knitting from where you need it to be. So you kind of don't have much of a choice. Once you get to the body, you can just start like carrying the yarn, and that's super easy to do. But there were so many ends to weave in at the end, especially around like the sleeves right here. And so I remember texting you and Casey and being like, I've been weaving in ends for an hour and I'm still nowhere close to being done. It took
a long time.
Which doesn't deter me. I still think it's 100% worth it, but I was like, whoa, I was not mentally prepared when I sat down to weave in ends. I thought it was going to be like a super quick, you know, watch one episode of something and be done, and it ended up taking like, I think I spread it across 2 or 3 nights because I just needed breaks from it.
Okay, I cut my yarn every stripe, even on the body.
Oh, really?
So I weaved in every single time there was a color change.
Even on the sleeves?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, okay.
I don't like to carry my yarn when there's that much because I always worry about it like cinching in.
I mean, this is where I would have, and I don't think I have a problem with it like cinching.
No. I just wasn't willing to risk it.
That's fair, I get that.
But either way, really, really enjoyable.
Well, jumping into finished objects, I have finished this sweater, which I'm calling my Christy Dawn sweater, even though I did use the Klippe sweater pattern by Lars Rains.
I'm so impressed by how fast you knit this.
Really?
I was not expecting it.
Well, I mean, it knit up really fast. It's a DK weight, and I used Vintage DK by Berroco, which is a wool and acrylic blend. And the reason I went with that yarn is, one, I'd already used that yarn to knit the original version of this pattern twice, and I really like it. I wear the sweaters all the time. It's held up great. It's very affordable. And since this was kind of an experiment, I didn't want to spend just like a ton of money in case this went horribly wrong. And so for context, I fell in love with this one sweater from the website Christy Dawn, and so I'll put a picture up on screen if I haven't already. But I fell in love with the sweater, and my brain thought I could make that rather than having to buy it myself. So I took the Klippe sweater, since I'd already knit that and had a good sense of how it fit, and I just redid the charts in order to get it to kind of resemble the Christy Dawn sweater. So if you look up really close at both of the sweaters, like the one online and then my version, it's not 100% accurate. I had to change some things to get it to work with the stitch pattern of the existing pattern that I was using, but I feel like I got the spirit of it pretty close.
I think it's very close.
I'll hold it up so you can kind of see some of the details of the yoke and then the body. And someone said the body looks like little flies, and I think that's so cute. I love that. I've had a few people reach out and ask if I was going to share the chart, and I honestly don't feel super comfortable sharing it. mostly because I didn't take really good notes as I knit this sweater. So I originally like worked it up in just Google Sheets. And then as I was knitting this, there were several times where I realized like what I had originally charted didn't really look the way that I was intending it to on here. And so I would make modifications kind of on the fly, and I didn't do a great job of notating when I changed those. In fact, I didn't note them at all. I just like, since I wasn't repeating any of the motifs where I ran into issues with it, I just kind of like moved on once I felt comfortable with how it was looking. And so if I shared it with someone, I couldn't really guarantee that it would work the way they wanted to. They'd have to like kind of reverse engineer a few of the rows. There's not too many rows, but like this black section, for example, I ran into quite a few areas where I had to make modifications from what I originally put. And then like, for example, when I originally charted it, I had several decreases like right above like color work rows, and I realized like those were gonna kind of squish the color work, and I wouldn't necessarily get like the crispness of some of the stitches that I wanted. So I would like move the decreased rows around a little bit, because for context it is knit bottom up, so you start with the body and then you do the sleeves and then join them in the round, and so then I was working from the yoke up. So I don't necessarily feel good about sharing it and having someone try to recreate this and it not work out the way they want it to. And also the original sweater pattern, the Klippe sweater, has it starts out with like increments of 8, and in order to get some of these larger motifs like the little scallops and the flowers, I used increments of 16, and that worked out well because for my size it was an even number of repeats of 8, but I don't know that that's the case with every size. I think there are some sizes that would have an odd number of repeats with the original pattern, and so you wouldn't be able to use this exact chart for all sizes of that sweater even if you purchased the pattern. I really was only looking at the first size, which is the size that I made, to make sure it would work for that. Another thing about this sweater is when I was working it up, I realized that the little flies and right under the scallops in the body, you can kind of see how they like sit right in the like bottom of the scallop for the body, but then in the sleeves, they sit kind of in between the scallops. And I kind of like the sleeves a little bit better where they sit in between. And I think that's something that only someone who actually knit this sweater would notice. Like, I'm the only one who would see or care about that. But I do think if I were to ever recreate this sweater, I would want to figure it out so that they all end, including the body, in between the scallops. That being said, I don't see myself ever remaking this sweater. I really love it. I think it's so cute, but I think it's busy enough that I don't need 2 of these, but we'll see.
This is my only technical finished object, although I will talk about another one here in a minute as a finished object. I guess excluding the Stornoway. The Stornoway is also a finished object. But the other thing that I finished, which I feel like is not near as impressive as your sweater now, is a pair of ribbed socks. So I've had these on the needles for a little bit. I was excited to get them finished. And I made them out of Coast to Coast classic sock in the color What in the 8 Hells is Coffee. I'm trying to hold that close to the camera so you can see it. It's really just a dark brown that has a little bit of tonality to it. It's almost kind of in between a variegated and a tonal. There is a little bit of color difference, but it's pretty subtle. And I didn't really use a pattern. I just kind of did a vanilla sock, 2x2. I think I made this part 5 inches, a short row heel, and then just continued down. So they're just really basic, but I enjoy having them in my wardrobe, getting to wear them a little bit. I've already worn them actually, and so I feel like they've got some like little fuzzies and hair and stuff, but that's okay. I still think they look pretty nice. I haven't worn them too much because I wanted to try to keep them looking pretty decent here. And I just love that I got to make a pair of socks this year because I kind of went away from that for the winter. I think it's been since September since I finished a pair of socks, so it feels really good to get those back on the needles.
I have also finished a pair of socks since we last met, and that is the Cable number 2 socks by Anne-Sophie Vellin or Augustin's DK. So I'll hold this up so you can see hopefully a little bit of the texture. They're super textury socks, and they even extend down to the foot, which is really unusual and kind of what attracted me to want to make this pair of socks to begin with, as I feel like I don't see sock patterns that often that carry the texture down to the foot. Usually the foot is stockinette and it'll be like on the top of the foot, if that makes sense, not the bottom.
I honestly don't know how I feel about it. I think I'm so used to doing the sock in stockinette, or the bottom part.
Yeah.
I don't know.
When I tried it on, I haven't worn these because I wanted to keep them nice for the podcast. So like I've tried them on to like take pictures and just like made sure they felt okay and were fitting okay. So I have had them on my feet quite a bit, just not for like long periods of time. And I really can't tell so far. So I'll be curious like long term if it'll be an issue, but I think they're really cute. At the very least, I just love the way they look. I loved knitting them. They were so fun because there's so much going on in these socks. There's I've been calling it kind of like a faux cable look, but it's really like a lace pattern that creates kind of like a honeycomb type look. And then there's some actual cables, and then there's this like smocking stitch, which really makes me want to make the Jenny jacket by PetiteKnit, because
that's my favorite part.
That sweater is all stocking stitch, and I thought that was actually really fun, and it was way easier than I thought it was going to be. So I really enjoyed that. And the yarn that I used for this pattern is Butterfly BFL by Dream in Color, and I believe the colorway is called Tumbleweed. I've had this in my stash for a couple of years now, and so I've really just been wanting to use it for a project. It doesn't have any nylon, so it's probably not the greatest option for a pair of socks, but since there is so much texture and everything, like I just considered this a fun little experiment. We'll just see what happens, and I loved knitting these. They were so fun to work up. So at the very least, they were just a good process knit. And usually I don't love a short row heel. Like I tend to think that sometimes they don't look as nice, and sometimes they lay kind of funny. So usually I'm like a heel flap and gusset person, but with this particular pattern, with the texture going onto the bottom of the foot, I couldn't figure out how to maintain the pattern and do the heel flap and gusset, because you would have so many increases that you would have to like taper down to get back to the original size of the pattern. So I think in this case, I think the short row heel makes the most sense, and I think it actually looks really good with this particular pair of socks.
They're beautiful.
I really love them. I just think they're so cute. They were so fun. Oh, the other thing that I'll talk about real quick is that usually when I'm knitting socks, I take really good notes to make sure that the number of rows match between each one. So like if I knit a certain number of like ribbing and then rows for the leg and then rows for the foot, I'll mark all of those down and then make sure that they're the same on both of these socks. But I somehow miscounted on one of them. I don't really know what happened, but when I first worked these up and blocked them, I realized one was a whole inch longer than the other.
That's quite a difference.
It was a huge difference, actually. Like I couldn't really tell when I tried them on. They fit roughly the same, but then when you were just like holding them up, like it was wild. They just
Did you go back and fix it?
I did. Since fit-wise, I didn't see a huge difference when I was like trying it on. The path of least resistance was just to take the one that was a little bit longer and take a little bit of length off of that one and then redo the toe portion. So that's what I ended up doing. And then I actually didn't reblock it after that. I just steamed the toe. And honestly, I'm not really sure which one it was. So I think that worked pretty well.
I've heard of people not even blocking their socks, just wearing them until they kind of fit into the shape that you like. So I feel like it's not a huge deal that one didn't get fully blocked.
Yeah. But yeah, I really love them. I would knit these again just for the process. Like I just think they were so cute, so fun. Really like them.
The project I'm working on now, I'm actually going to count as a finished object because I'm really just doing the bind off, and I've got this much more to go. I might be able to finish it during this episode, we'll see. But I am so close to finishing it that I can't imagine I would have much more to add next time. So even though it's not technically finished, we're going to count that, and
by the time we edit it, you'll have some footage you can throw in. It'll be finished.
yes, yeah, I'll definitely put some B-roll in so you can see it. Let me figure out how to hold this up really well here. I have almost finished an Amy Slipover. So this is a pattern by Sandnes Garn. Unfortunately, the booklets, it sounds like, are being discontinued, and you can only get the patterns if you buy a sweater's quantity of yarn, which was not the case when we acquired the pattern, or I should say you acquired the pattern. So I'm just knitting from the book. Should I grab the book?
Oh, yeah, that's not a bad idea.
Yeah, let me go grab the book. The book that the pattern is from is the Sandnes Garn booklet 2202. And it's got quite a few patterns in here that I'm actually very interested in knitting. I've talked about this a little bit in our spring planning video, and I actually said that I wanted to knit the Amy Slipover, which I'm so surprised at how fast it knit up. I can't believe I'm almost done with it, but I'm pretty proud that I'm sticking true to the spring plans so far. So unfortunately, it sounds like it is going to get harder to access those Sandnes Garn patterns, but I'm really thankful we've got several. You've been picking them up as you've seen them for quite a while. And I think that this was a really good pattern to start with for Sandnes Garn because they do kind of have the reputation of not being the easiest patterns. They really don't hold your hand or do any like extra explanation. But the pattern starts in the back and basically just knitting plain stockinette and doing some increases for the underarm, but they're pretty low in the underarm. And I knit this part, the back part, truly to pattern. I knit the collar to pattern and then the front, but the part where I started getting tripped up was that after you finish the front collar increases here, it says after that to knit to the same length as the back, but it doesn't specify if that length is from under the collar or at the shoulder increases. And so I was a little bit unsure of what the right thing to do in that situation was. And I went from the collar because I figured maybe it was accounting for extra length to like cover bust curvature, maybe. And so I don't know, but I knit to that length from the collar, and then I ended up deciding that I wanted the front to be a little bit shorter. So mine now has a little bit of a high-low situation where the back is a tiny bit longer than the front. I don't think it's a ton, probably like half an inch or so, but it'll be interesting to see if that's noticeable when I'm wearing it. I thought that this vest was really cute though because of the little ties at the side, and I just think that that's going to be kind of an easy way to, I don't know, put it over a lot of different things. One thing to note about this pattern is that it is a one size only, which I thought was interesting because it is a very easy construction, and since there's no connecting the front and back, it's like only connected when you tie it in a little bow from these sides. I think that it probably would be easy to work for all different sizes, but also at the same time, since it's so easy, it's interesting that the designer didn't choose to add different sizes. So if you were in a situation where you did want it to be a different size, I think it would be really easy to play with the gauge or even increase along the shoulders or things like that. And I think I've seen several people on Ravelry do play with those types of things because as I was looking at this pattern on Ravelry, there were some variations of like how much depth there was here and things like that. So really pretty easy pattern. I'm glad that I'm starting with this for a Sandnes Garn, and I think it's really cute. I can't believe how fast it's knitted up. So I'm hoping to have this finished and blocked and everything this weekend. I realized I forgot to talk about the yarn that I used, so I'll pull that out. I have had one of these yarns in stash for a very long time, and I still have a whole extra skein. I thought I didn't have enough for a sweater's quantity, but I think I probably would have now that I'm thinking about it. My base yarn was the Juniper Moon Herriot. I'm reading the label to make sure I say everything right. which is a 75% alpaca and 25% polymide yarn. And this is super soft yarn. I honestly cannot believe how soft this is. I think that's part of why it's been knitting up so fast, is because it's so just like soft. And then I'm holding it with an Isager Mohair. I forget the color, but it's just a very dark gray. So they pair really well together. And this yarn, the Isager, is I think the softest mohair out there that I've tried, at least so far.
It's so soft.
So the combination of these is like a little cloud. It's just so heavenly to work with. I'm like, oh.
I have one other finished object, and that is my swirl loop beanie by Other Loops.
Wait, I'm lost. Where am I? Okay, sorry.
And this is made out of one strand of Chibi Sport by Moondrake Fibers, and then one strand of Soft Silk Mohair, also in the colorway Red Currant, which was left over from the sweater that I'm wearing. So whenever we initially decided on the Stornoway sweater, I went through my stash. I had a ton of trench coat, and I had a little bit of Red Currant, Merino, and mohair held over from when I made a lace pullover a while ago. But I thought I needed a little bit extra, and so I ordered another skein of the Red Currant mohair. And turns out I did not need that for the sweater, and so I used it for this hat. So that was nice to get it out of stash so it didn't just sit there lingering for too long. But it was just simple 1x1 rib all the way until you get to the top. I did use a tubular cast on for the bottom, but for the most part this is just like a very mindless, like good on the go sort of project. It was super easy. I really loved it. And then I really like the way that it fits too. I'll try it on real quick so hopefully you can see, but it has like a little bit of slouch up here, but it's not incredibly slouchy, so I think it's cute.
I think it's cute with the stripes too.
I feel like it's kind of Where's Waldo with the stripes. I would not wear these together.
Okay, well I didn't think that till you said it, but
now that I said it. Mm-hmm. But I do think it is very, oh, what is that? Wes Anderson, like the Life Aquatic.
Yes.
It kind of gives that vibes, and I think that's cute. Okay, I think we're ready to transition into works in progress. So I'll talk about what I'm currently working on, and that is my Tulip Loop sweater by Other Loops. So I'll hold it up so you can hopefully see a little bit of the details. The yarn is Coast to Coast Alpaca DK held together with a strand of Soft Silk Mohair from Knitting for Olive in the colorway Marzipan, and the Alpaca DK is the color Button. I don't know why I had to think about that. I really love the back so far. It has this really cute little triangle detail that I just absolutely love. And for the most part, it's pretty mindless in the sense that, yes, there's cables, but they're pretty spaced apart. So for the most part, you're just working most stitches as they present themselves. And so that makes it really easy. And it has a fairly large gauge on, I'm using a US 8, and so that's also helping it knit up really quick so far.
Do you think that because the cables are so far apart, this could be a good pattern for people who maybe aren't super confident with cables, or like a first cable pattern?
I think so, because the cables themselves are very easy and they're spaced apart, so I think it would be good for that.
I think it's beautiful. I'm so obsessed with that pattern.
I'm really liking it. My gauge was a little bit small when I swatched, and so usually based on like the pattern measurements, I'd probably make the first size, but in this case I'm making the second size. Although I will say the first and the second size are exactly the same up until you join for stitches in the underarm. So I don't know that that's making like a huge difference, to be honest. It'll make a little bit of a difference when it's blocked, but I was kind of surprised when I went to go cast on and those were the same, but it did give me quite a bit of time to like make a decision about which size I was going to make, since for so much of it was the same. And then I did take a risk on this sweater. Usually with hand-dyed yarn like the Alpaca DK, I would alternate skeins whenever I'm like joining a new one in the round, but I did knit the whole body or the whole back in one skein, and then I used that same skein to do like this left shoulder here, and then I started a new skein on the right shoulder. And I don't think you can see on the right shoulder where the old skein and the new skein meet. Like, I've looked so many times and I've looked at it in different lighting and like bad lighting, good lighting. I cannot tell the difference. And then also in the back where like the flat knitting ended and where I joined a new skein for knitting in the round, I can't see it on the back either. Like, I can't tell. And so I know that's kind of a risk to not be alternating skeins with hand-dyed yarn. But in this case, I think they're all so close. Like, I don't think it's that important. And I think the mohair is kind of adding this like haziness to the yarn too that like helps it all blend in together. So I'm gonna keep doing it until
you notice a difference.
Yeah.
I don't see a difference at all. I don't think you would ever know that those were like
I
cannot. I mean, it's probably all the
difference.
same dye lot, so
Yeah, they were all ordered at the same time, and I feel like if I was gonna see it, I would see it on camera, and I haven't noticed it through camera. So maybe let us know if you can see. But like, I really, in person, I can't, so I don't think it's gonna bother me.
I know we've talked so much about this color, but I'm obsessed with it. I think it's so beautiful.
I've knit a couple pairs of socks out of it, and so I'm excited to finally have a sweater pattern that goes with it too.
So once I finish this Amy Slipover, which I'm really hoping to very soon, the only other work in progress I have on the needles right now is my Dagmar cardigan. And this is something I've been working on a little bit. I actually started it in January, I think. And it's now into March, but it's just a knit that I don't want to rush on. I'm really enjoying the cables, and I think that it's enough of a, I don't know if the word is intense, but like it's enough of a detailed project that I don't want to overwhelm myself trying to like power through it. I'm kind of okay with taking some time with it, but I'm just so mesmerized by the cables. I love them so much. So this is a pattern by PetiteKnit. I feel like a lot of people are knitting this up, so we've probably seen this before. You can kind of tell where I had blocked some of it and then some of it is not blocked because the cables are cinching in a little bit more as you get towards the bottom of the needles, and that's not just because they're a little bunchy, it's because this top part was blocked and then the bottom part has not been. But at one point I was nervous that it was looking small, and then I blocked it and was like, no, it's not looking small. It's just that the cables do cinch it in so much. Last time I was just on the back, I think, and so at this point I knit the whole back and then both of the fronts, and I'm now connected in the round and about an inch under the arm, I think. One thing that I've seen in the pictures of the pattern, and I've also seen some people talk about, is that the sleeves of this pattern are very big, and I don't want to go too much in the opposite direction. I kind of like the oversized look, but I do think that her sleeves are maybe a little bit too big for what I'm wanting. And so what I decided to do was crop the body or the back when I was knitting it by an inch. And so it says knit to a certain length. I just knitted an inch below that length. But then when you go to pick up the front panels, it says knit to the same length. And for me to match the same rows, I actually ended up knitting the front the correct length that the pattern says. So it ended up being true to the length, even though the back was shortened by an inch. So my intention was that I would shorten the armhole. I would shorten the circumference by 2 inches, and I think I really only shortened it 1 inch. But I just thought it was interesting that the pattern said to make the length the same, but I really could not get it to be the same and still have the same rows match up when I was doing this. And so I think what that's going to result in is just this line here for the drop shoulder being a little bit more on the back as opposed to shoulder, which I'm okay with, but I just was like, I wonder if anybody else, because so many people are knitting this, I wonder if anybody else has found that length odd, because I really don't know how you could get them to be the exact length without ending on different rows. So I don't know, but I think it'll be fine still. And even if I just take out an inch of the arm circumference, I think that will still be okay. And they're meant to be oversized, so not the end of the world. But just kind of a little note, I am probably going to be working on this for quite a while, so it might be a while before we update on how that ends up going. But I'll talk about my yarn as well for this because I'm really liking the yarn. I've got a lot of gray going on right now.
It's so much gray.
I'm a little bit ready to be into some color, but that's okay. I am using the Kelbourne Woolens Scout in the color Graphite Heather, which I bought last year, and knew that I wanted to make it with the Dagmar, but I knew I wanted to hold it with the mohair. So Kelbourne Woolens really kindly sent me their Harmony Mohair, which they just pair so well together. And I really like that this looks rustic, but it really doesn't feel rustic. I know I've said that before about how this yarn looks, but it's just really pleasant to work with. And so I've been really excited about working with this yarn. And yeah, it's just creating a really nice texture that really shows the cables, but still has a nice halo to it. So very happy with this one, but probably won't be done next time, and that's okay.
That's okay. I hesitate to call this next project a work in progress because I'm only like 6 rows into it, but I have technically started the Sarah cardigan by Man Mi Choi, I think is how you say the designer's name. And I think it's an absolutely beautiful pattern. It has so many cables and it has brioche and just lots of texture and interesting details. And so I was really attracted to this cardigan because I thought it would be a really fun knit to work on. But even just being a couple rows in, I'm getting very nervous that it's going to be way too big.
It looks really big.
It looks really big. I'm knitting the smallest size, and my gauge was slightly smaller than what she recommends, but I was like, oh, I'll just take that risk knowing that there's a lot of positive ease built into this cardigan. But even still, I think it's just going to be too large. So I wish she had a smaller size in the pattern. But that being said, I'm kind of feeling not confident in moving forward with this cardigan, but I still want to use this yarn for a cardigan if I can. The yarn is Knitting for Olive Merino, held together with the Soft Silk Mohair, and it's in the colorway Dark Ochre. And so I started looking at other patterns, and one pattern that I've swatched for is the Roma cardigan by Mochi Knits, and it's like a slip stitch texture that she uses a DK for. And so I'll hold up my swatch, but this swatch is also just a little bit small, and I'm scared to go up a needle size because it's already just a little bit airy and open. I think even though she uses a DK for this pattern, I think she uses one that has a suri, and so that suri fills in a lot more space. Yeah, it looks a lot fluffier. So I don't think this yarn is going to work for that cardigan. So now I'm kind of on plan C, and I have not swatched for it, but I'm kind of thinking plan C might be the Agnette cardigan by PetiteKnit.
Oh, that would be a really good one.
I think that would be cute because I did for the Sarah cardigan, I swatched in brioche, and this brioche is closer to a 15 stitch gauge for 4 inches, but the Agnette cardigan is 19 stitches. And so I'd have to do another
third swatch
to see what size needles I would use for that. But I think having that fabric be just a little bit tighter and thicker would get me a look that I'm kind of going for. So
that pattern has been on my list forever, and I'm just intimidated because I think it's going to take a long time.
It will take a long time. But I want to use this yarn for a cardigan, and I want to be happy with the cardigan at the end of the day. So plus I've been wanting to do something in brioche for a little bit. Like that's been kind of on my mind, where I'm like, oh, I miss brioche knitting. I want to get back to it. So I might swatch for that and see if I can make that work. But I'm a little frustrated that I'm like on plan C and still not making this work. And part of me is like, you know, it's a very fall color, so maybe I should just put this in timeout and figure it out in the fall.
I don't think that would be the worst. It is a very fall color.
It wouldn't be the worst idea.
You might find more inspiration.
Yeah.
I don't think either of those plans are bad though.
No. It's always frustrating when you like think you have an idea in mind and then it just doesn't pan out the way you think it's going to.
Yeah.
So maybe I do maybe I'd be happier if I just like put this in timeout and figure out something else for my next whip. I don't know.
I feel like it's been a while since we've had some acquisitions, so it's been kind of exciting to welcome a couple of new things to our stash. I'll start with this first one because it's my first test knit of the year and I'm so excited about this yarn. I have not started the actual project, but I do have a little swatch to share that I think is really adorable. So I've got this, I think it's pronounced onling, and it's super soft wool and Angora. It's the #1 yarn. I think that the way that they categorize it is like different weights have numbers. So this is #1, but I would put it as a DK probably. And I got it in this beautiful wine color that I've seen so many people wearing and knitting with, and I've seen PetiteKnit using for quite a few of her things. I just feel like I might have been influenced by this color, but I'm really, really excited for it. And I've already swatched it up and I was able to hit gauge. I am absolutely in love with how this is looking. I just think that it's really, really cute.
The Angora adds such a nice halo to this. Like it looks like
almost like it has a mohair with it, but
yeah,
it's just one strand.
Yeah.
So this is a test knit for her first name is Joyan, I believe is how you pronounce it, but she is known as Tonks Knit on Instagram and YouTube. If you haven't seen her podcast, she is such an impressive knitter and I've been following her for quite a while. She's so fast, I can't believe it. And I feel like we're pretty fast sometimes, but I feel like she's really fast. And she's been knitting a lot of Scandinavian designs, and I think designs that we kind of gravitate towards too. But she is starting to do some of her own designs and reached out and asked if I wanted to test knit for her, which I was so excited about. We did a test knit together last year, which maybe is why she thought of me for it. But I'm just so excited to see her designing because I think that she'll have some really great designs out there. And this yarn was sponsored for the test knit. So it was gifted to me not because of our channel, but like because I'm doing the test knit. And I thought that was really, really nice because yeah, test knits that are sponsored are always a little bit exciting.
It's always appreciated.
Yeah, it's always appreciated. Not always expected, obviously, but you know, when brands can help support designers, especially new and small designers, that was really, really nice. And appreciate the Onling brand for helping support someone who's getting started with their design. So very excited to get this on the needles. This will probably be my very next thing that I cast on just because it does have a due date. And I can't remember the name of the design, but I'll try to put it on the screen. But this will be the next thing that I'm really diving deep on. I know that there's a certain length that you can go to, but I always have like the most insane length.
I do that too, but then when I start to get to smaller amounts, I'll cut it to like...
Oh, that's what I should do at this point, but...
Yeah, you might...
No, it's too late.
Okay. Fair.
Unfortunately, our community has been mourning the loss of Joanne's, and I think that we're pretty sad about it too, because we went through a lot for sewing notions, like getting thread and elastic and just having that loss of the convenience.
Yeah, of just being able to be like, oh, I need some thread, let me go match this real quick, or like, oh, I realized I need a zipper, let me go grab one.
So we're sad to see it go, but we have gone a couple times to just see what all they have and see what they're offering right now as they're working on closing the stores, which we're really sad about. But they had this knitting book that I had seen several times, and there's a specific pattern in here that I was interested in. So I picked up the book Arctic Knits. I'm realizing now that I don't know how to pronounce the author's name, but she is known on Instagram and Ravelry and her designs as, is it Saskiko?
I think so.
I think is how you pronounce it. She was formerly known as the Petite Knitter and rebranded recently to kind of, I think, fit with more of what she's interested in now, and maybe also because there's always that clarification of Petite Knit versus the Petite Knitter. But she changed her name recently, and I had been interested in this book for quite a while because there's a specific pattern that is a detailed color work pattern in a fingering, so it's probably going to take forever, but I just think it's a really beautiful design. It is, oh, I just found it. I think it's pronounced Baffin Jumper. I'll hold it up. I'll probably also have to put other pictures in here if that is not easy to see. But I've just thought that this design was absolutely beautiful. I've seen it on Ravelry and saved it, and I was kind of sad that it was part of the book because I think shipping was pretty expensive when the book first came out, and I just wasn't sure. But seeing it on sale at Joann's, I was like, this is my chance. And so very excited to have the whole book. But yeah, that's the pattern that got me and was most interesting to me. So I'm excited to add this to the book collection. I don't think I'll knit it up for quite a while, but
it'll be a good fall knit though.
Yeah, it'll be here when I'm ready. So
I think we'll wrap up with some sewing projects. So since we last met, I have made 2 pairs of laid pants. I've kind of become obsessed with this pattern. It's a pants pattern by Sydney Graham. So on Instagram, she goes by Hi Sydney Graham, and she's made several other patterns that we've also made up and have just absolutely loved all of them. So I made my first pair of laid pants out of I think it was a sheet that I got at the thrift store. It feels like cotton, but I'm really honestly not 100% sure what it's made out of, but I thought this would be a good fabric to just like work them up, make sure I like the pattern. If I need to make any adjustments to the fit, it's not like it's fabric that's like something I really care about, but I actually think they turned out so cute. I really love these pants. Sometimes they kind of feel like pajama pants, but I think in the best way, like in kind of like a Sonder House sort of vibe. I loved the blue pair so much that I did decide to make a second pair, and so I used a reddish brown gingham that was gifted by Pigeon Wishes shop, and that is a kind of a crinkle linen gingham. I love this fabric so much. I've used it in like another color to make a Henrietta skirt and a pair of shorts, and it's just like the most comfortable fabric, and I think it's so cute in these laid pants. So I'll probably be making a million more pairs of these pants this summer. One of our really good friends, Paige, has knit, or not knit, she's sewn seven pairs at this point. I just think they're so cute, so easy to style. I feel like in the summertime I'm going to live in them, and I work from home 50% of the time, so on the days that I'm at home, just like, you know, I'm usually on camera, so I have to look somewhat presentable, but I also want to be really comfy, and these pants are just absolutely perfect for that, so I really love them. So I'll probably make a million more, and that's okay. The only sewing pattern that I finished recently is also the laid pants, so I've only made one at this point. I'm in last place, but I too am going to make a million pairs. I have another pair cut out ready to sew, and I've got fabric in the mail to make a third pair. I really like them, and I used up some of the brown cotton twill fabric that I bought back in the fall. If you remember our fall planning video, I wanted to make a dress, but it was a self-drafted, and I just decided that I'm not that confident, especially for the pattern that I was wanting to maybe achieve, and I bought 5 yards of it, I think. I think it was even higher than that. I feel like it was like 6 or 7. It was a lot. I bought a lot of this brown fabric. It was on sale. And so I decided to take some of that fabric to try out the laid pants as like a first, you know, draft to make sure that I liked everything. I didn't want to make modifications. And I too am so happy with them. I think that they turned out really great, and yeah, I'm loving the brown, but I'll be excited to have some more too. So yeah, that's the only sewing pattern that I finished, but we're very happy with the laid pants right now. March is going to be our month to make laid pants, I think. Yum. I will say, usually when I'm sewing things, I'll just add on some length just in case. Like if it's a dress, I'll add on a couple inches. If it's like a pair of pants, I'll just add on a couple inches, because I figure I can always shorten them a little, then add length back. And I probably should have watched Sydney's YouTube video about the laid pants, because she talks about how she makes the pattern tall to begin with for that very reason of it's easier to take length off than it is to add it later. And so I added length on top of the length that she had already accounted for. They do not need any extra length. At least I'm approximately like 5'4", 5'5", and they hit like right at the bottom of my ankle. So I didn't need that extra length. I suppose if you're significantly taller, you might want to add them, but I think Sydney talks about how she's fairly tall in real life too, and she likes the way that they sit on her, so maybe just something to consider. I ended up chopping off all the length that I had added on, so going forward I'm just gonna make them exactly to pattern.
Okay, this might be a good place to end because, wait, let me hold it up.
Oh, did you finish?
I think I just finished.
Look at timing.
This is beautiful timing, actually. It needs to be blocked for sure. The ribbing is really cinching this in, but I think I finished. Wonderful. Great way to end.
Perfect timing.
Okay.
Well, thank you so much if you've made it this far. We really appreciate you joining us and hope that you're getting enjoyment out of whatever project you were working on during this episode.
As always, we love hearing what you've been working on, what things are inspiring you, and just really appreciate everybody being here today.